Thank you everyone for joining today. Today's session is about becoming a culture leader, how to build an engaging culture that helps reduce turnover. Just to touch on a few housekeeping items, below at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice there are a few buttons. The first one I'd like to draw your attention to is the chat button. I see you guys are all really familiar with that, so I appreciate the engagement. Feel free to be engaged throughout this presentation, this webinar. Participate in the chat. If at any moment you're having any technical issues, we have Rebecca here that'll assist you. Next is the Q&A. As the presentation is going on, feel free to submit some questions that you'd like to have answered. We'll do our best to get to as many as possible, and if we have time at the end, we'll address some there at that point as well. During the course of the presentation, we'll put up a few polls. We'd love your participation and feedback. And at the conclusion of this presentation, you'll all earn a professional development credit for this session, so be sure to stick around until the end. And finally, this event is being recorded and will be shared after the event. All right, I still see people commenting where they're from. That's awesome. All right, let's get rolling. So we always love kicking things off with an icebreaker, so we're going to use this lovely chat feature again. How would you describe your company culture in one word? Let's go ahead and let's light that chat up. I see family and then followed by immediately not great. Broken.
Good words.
Yeah, they're just flying. Look at
Wow.
these. I see family again, challenging, respected. Okay. There's quite a mix here. Any that stand out to you, Jean, as?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw slightly dysfunctional. I saw dubious, complicated. There's a bunch of really good buzzwords. Challenging, friendly. That's good. Like that one.
Big fan of friendly.
Yeah, evolving. Well, that's true. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. We have such an active audience here. I love it.
Yeah, dazed and confused. That could describe me right now. I don't know. This is really great. Thanks everyone for sending in your chats.
Awesome. Really appreciate the engagement, everybody. Thank you. Your speakers today, I'm going to start by introducing Lynn, residing in Omaha, Nebraska. I think we saw a couple Nebraska folks attending here today. Currently the Director of Human Resources for Meridian Clinical Research, Jean is responsible for talent acquisition, engagement, and retention. She's also responsible for integration of new sites, acquisitions from an HR perspective. With 30 plus years of multiple areas of HR experience, she's a certified compensation professional. In her spare time, Jean enjoys traveling, gardening, college sports, and spending time with friends and family. And I'm not sure if any of you were able to sneak past her there, but she's also a huge fan of Christmas, as noted with her lit up Christmas tree. Do we have any Christmas fans in the house today? And then for myself, by day, I'm an advocate for employee rewards and recognition. I love cultures built around fun and being yourself. By night, I'm a dad bod, father of 3 who loves playing sports, specifically hockey. Just recently, I even started my own ice hockey league for the purpose of just meeting more people. When I'm not playing hockey or spending time with family, you can likely find me playing darts or board games from my collection of over 140, which I'm sure you can see in the background here. My experience consists of 12 plus years of marketing and advertising with stints in corporate office supplies, coffee service, all before landing here at Bucketlist. Awesome. Today's webinar is presented to you by Bucketlist Rewards, the #1 employee recognition platform. Our mission is to help workplaces build the best culture in the world. And Meridian, a user of Bucketlist, conducts clinical trials, aka research studies, to help determine if medications, vaccines, medical devices, and other health-related products are effective. We'll get into this a little bit later when we get into the fireside chat with Jean. I still see people commenting here, leaving for a hockey tournament, Aspen. Nice. And then we see some people commenting on their favorite hockey teams. I like it. Go Leafs. I'll plug the Leafs in here right now. Go Leafs. Just to touch on the agenda for this session, the importance of an engaging culture. Then we'll get into a fireside chat with Lynn, how to build an engaging culture that helps reduce employee turnover, and then key takeaways. And if we have time, we'll get into some question and answers. Building an engaging workplace culture is so integral to a company's success. It's something that can help improve employee happiness and result in improved retention. Here, we've chosen a few stats to highlight just how important it is to focus on culture. You can see here the first one, the likelihood of job turnover at an organization with high company culture is 14%, whereas the probability of a job turnover in low company culture is 48%. So huge change there. Having meaningful relationships with our colleagues makes us more productive, 7 times more engaged, and increases our happiness as much as a $100,000 raise. Wow. Happy employees are 31% more productive and display 3 times more creativity than their unhappy counterparts. So I'm sure some individuals can relate here to either of these 3 points. Awesome. All right, moving along here. We're going to get into it now. Jean, this is where you're the star of the show. Maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and Meridian Clinical Research.
Yeah, so thanks, Aaron. So 30 plus years of experience in the HR field in a variety of industries. I spent 17 years at a credit card processing company that was worldwide, got my legs under me and had great mentors. I'm very proud of the mentors that I've had in my career. And then moved over to a company called Home Instead Senior Care and got them on the best places to work for 4 years in a row. And that was where I really learned the value of engagement and retention. And that's why I'm very focused on that right now, because it's a real change agent for growth. And I've been a part of a lot of high growth companies. And so you've got to get your foundation built. You've got to get that retention and engagement. And that starts at the get-go. So that's what we're doing at Meridian. Meridian made it on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies for the 3rd year in a row this year. They're at number 745 now and climbing. We have 655 employees across the US. And we are in the business of saving lives. You know, our product is about clinical studies. We were very instrumental in all of the COVID studies. And so, you know, very proud to work at Meridian Clinical Research.
Wow, thank you for that, Jean. I heard you mentioned mentors, and I believe mentors, everyone should have a mentor at some point in their professional career or even in their life. What impact did a mentor have on you and your development?
You know, I think they basically just said, hey, we think you're ready for this role. You may not know what it even means, which was most of the time I didn't know, but they wanted me to take a chance on it. And they were willing to take a chance on me. And that's how I got into the compensation world. That's how I got into mergers and acquisitions. That's how I got into, you know, benefits in all of the areas of HR. And so I try to be that great mentor to my team now.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And maybe before we get rolling and continue on here, maybe another fun fact about you. What is it you love about Christmas so much?
You know, I think it's the meaning behind Christmas. It's just having the family time. It's being together with friends. It's that giving portion of it. And just, you know, everyone, I hope, appears to be joyful. And I love that part of the holiday. Not that I don't like others, but certainly, you know, Christmas is my favorite.
Yeah, Christmas is good times. Awesome. What are some of the top challenges you see in the HR space right now when it comes to employee engagement and retention?
You know, I think it's the world that we live in right now, Aaron. I think a lot of it is, you know, the coming out of the pandemic, and we've got a lot of remote workforces now around the country. We as a company, our corporate staff is now remote completely. The clinical team, of course, has to be in the sites, but all of our corporate staff is working. I'm in my basement now working. So that's a piece of it. I like to be physically in a space with a group, but this is the world that we're in. And I think a lot of it is, you know, one of the top challenges for us is, why Meridian? What makes you so special? You know, how do you differentiate yourself from others? And why should I come and work for you? And why should I stay working for you? We've got an instant gratification society right now where a person may get $1 an hour more to go across the street or go work for someone else. And it may not be the best interest, but they're going to go. So our challenge is to identify things that will make them want to stay and make them want to come work for Meridian.
And what are, other aside from that, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen recently, and how have you overcome them?
We're in a very compliance laden company, industry, as you might guess. Clinical studies are very compliant laden. So we always have to look at ways to bring joy to our staff. The FDA is very much involved in our world, and they're looking at things that we do incorrectly, potentially. And so we've got to have something on the other side. And that's why we'll talk about this later, but that's why we went with a more consistent and formalized recognition program. We wanted everyone to participate in that and get joy out of it. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. And, there's been a hot topic over the past couple of years. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the pandemic. What type of impact did that have on employee engagement and retention in your mind?
Yeah, the pandemic caused a lot of stress on a lot of different companies. And I think, we're still coming out of that a little bit. Our world is just such high growth right now. It's getting people in the right seats, in the right place, and, making sure that they have a work-life balance too, to go along with that work.
Awesome. Do you have any stories or things that you're hearing from other HR professionals as it pertains to challenges in the HR space?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of across the board challenges as to what I mentioned. I think it's around the work-life balance. It's how can we attract and retain? How can we make a difference in a person's interview? Maybe we mention, hey, we've got this really great recognition program, and we use that as a great tool now when we interview, and they just lap it right up. So we find the things that are going to be different about Meridian.
I've often seen in postings online when individuals are posting for open roles, they mention rewards and recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Does Meridian mention that in their open roles or promote that as a way to overcome challenges?
Yeah, we do. We've got a lot of good press on that right now. And we also, when we do our interviews, we make sure and talk about all of the great things that make Meridian, one of those top 745 fastest growing companies.
And in our past discussions, you mentioned the war on talent. Maybe you can expand on that for me.
Yeah. So if you're an HR professional, I think you probably understand the term war on talent. We're all, there's one pool of candidates for everyone. And so we're probably all going after some of the same people. And I think it's just, again, it's listening to them when they're interviewing, what's important to them, what makes a great employer, how can I grow within your company, how can I be a better employee, and those are the things that we look at. And I'm sure others on this webinar are feeling the same thing.
Yeah, as I look at the chat here, I see mentor and mentorship kind of being a hot topic right now. A lot of individuals are asking where they find a mentor or how do they identify one, or some would like one. Any tips for the audience out there on maybe how to approach or find or attach themselves to somebody?
I think it's spending time with folks either in your company. It doesn't have to be an internal mentor at all. It can be an external mentor. My pastor is actually one of my mentors right now. So I look at what can I help them with? It may be a two-way street where I can help them and they can help me. But yes, I think it's just looking at people that you would like to emulate, someone that has touched your heart and you want to, be a part of their space and learn from them. I've had people at all levels of an organization be my mentor. I've had people that are beneath me be my mentor. And so you kind of have to look all over the place for that person. But once you find them, it's a game changer for you.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So I hope everyone can soon find that mentor they're all looking for. Yeah. We'll move along here.
Sure.
So how would you describe the culture at Meridian, and how did you get to where the culture is at today?
So I wrote down some buzzwords, right, for this slide. Definitely passionate, very caring and giving organization, a mission-minded organization, high growth, and just, looking for all the great people that we can get to join us. It's very much a team-based organization. And so that's what attracted me to Meridian. Um, our culture our company was built in 1999. It was started in 1999 by Nikki Osborne. She is still our CEO and founder to this day. And she built a really great culture around, family and getting the work done. And there were days where it was really tough. I mean, that was starting up a company and building a team. And it was small then, but now we keep growing and growing and growing. So I've got a story for you. I actually left Meridian. I was here in 2021 for 3 months, and I was recruited away by a former manager thinking, oh, the grass is greener. I'm going to go work for her. It didn't work out. It wasn't the role that I was thinking it would be. So I had coffee with my old boss, and we talked about it. And she said, well, why don't you just come back here and I'll give you your job back. So I started back again in January. And in those 3 months or 6 months that I was gone, the company just grew like crazy in that amount of time. And my belief is that you want to scale the culture as much as you can. So you may have a large company, but sometimes you want it to feel like a small culture, a small company. So that's where we're at right now, is we want to be able to preserve a lot of the small company feel, but we know that we have to put processes in place and framework in place to continue to grow and be that large company.
Yeah, lots of good information there, Jean. Thank you. What do you like best about the culture at Meridian?
Probably just the passion that comes behind it and the fact that it is a mission-minded company. I can talk later about some of the great things that we're doing that drive that culture as well. It's just, I mean, it's amazing how our founder and our leadership team are all in sync and just, preserving that culture.
And what initiatives did you put in place to foster that culture?
A lot of it is just we're doing different things, such as we have a Good Deeds Day that's been with us for a while. A Good Deeds Day is when our founder and our executive team give every employee in the company a stipend in November, December timeframe. This year it's a little earlier. And they just say, go out into the community and do good, right? Whatever it is, if you need to pay for a person's lunch at a restaurant, or you need to tip a waitress when she's down and out, or if you want to give to your favorite charity, whatever it is, make someone feel really good about their day. And so that's one piece of it. But we're also putting in like feedback mechanisms for our employees. We've got 30, 60 day mechanisms after they're hired. We have 45 and 90-day reviews. We have, of course, Bucketlist. We have, last year, our founder invited every employee to go to summer camp in Connecticut, and she paid for the whole thing. You stayed in cabins, but it was a team building. And I think that's where the culture is so great, is that it's all around building that team, having that passion for the company, and understanding the mission that we're doing.
I see someone asking how the stipend amount is determined. Is there a process in place for determining that amount?
There is, but I'm not privy to that right now, so I don't want to overkill that one. But yes, it's a very nice stipend.
Yeah, it's a nice gesture and it's a nice way to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips on building processes or initiatives for recruitments and onboarding activities to make sure that further contribution, towards a good company culture?
I think it's just, again, I'm beating a dead horse on this one, but I think it is listening to the voice of the employee. We are going to put in an employee engagement survey this next year. We're putting in, building out a leadership academy. We have a Learning Central forum, a platform that we use to make sure that all of our folks are consistently trained. So yes, and we're constantly just looking at ways that we can add training to that Learning Central platform. And then we also looked at our recognition program, and it just, it wasn't as robust as we wanted. So we can go more into that later. But yeah, a lot of great things happening at Meridian.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to touch on the point you mentioned, Leadership Academy. So what does that look like, and what can it do to, how can it improve the culture?
Right. So I've implemented it before, and we're in the midst of building this one out. So it's not final by any means, but in at home instead, I did build out a leadership academy, and it involved bringing in external speakers. You were in a cohort type of an atmosphere with, folks in your same roles or same level. So vice presidents would be in one and directors would be in another, and so on and so on. But you had a curriculum that you went through, and you had a commitment on that curriculum. When you signed up for the Leadership Academy, you were committed to being in that. And you had homework that you had to do, and you got benefits of having great external speakers. We had Patrick Lencioni come in, who did Getting Naked, and we did Jim Collins, who was Good to Great. Those were our speakers, and it made a huge difference in the mindset of our employees as to what leadership really meant.
Awesome. And do you have any tips for any of the HR leaders here today on how to implement something like this?
Yeah, it's always buy-in, right? You always have to get buy-in from the leadership and your executive team, probably your CEO, because it is going to be a spend, right? If you do it right, you're going to have to spend some money to implement that. But I think the ROI on that is pretty easy to convince them. But you do have to have data. You do have to have, a good external vendor that can help you with the build out of this, a good partner. So yeah, it's all going back to providing them a business case as to why this would work.
Awesome. And I see someone here asking, what could be some ways to engage remote employees? Do you have any tips or suggestions on that one?
We do virtual happy hours. We do actual happy hours of people that live in the same area. We have one planned for mid-October in the Omaha area here for our employees in HR. We do everything by Teams. So Teams is our savior. We do meetings by Teams. We do chats by Teams. We do channels of Teams. And that's our way of keeping together. And then we actually build out like HR chats. So we have a gentleman in our team that is just every day he puts a chat out there like, oh, it's Friday Eve, it's Thursday, it's Friday Eve. And then people will, contribute to that. But it's also a way for people to just get together virtually and check on each other to make sure that everybody's doing all right. And that if there's support needed, they can offer that support.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll move along here. What are some strategies that you believe are most successful when it comes to employee engagement and retention?
It's all about listening for me. It always has been. It's, you get nuggets from your employees that you can't even, you just have to have it. I just got off the phone with an acquisition that we did in June of this year, and they are so willing to give feedback about how the integration is going and how engaged people are and how excited they are about this new recognition program that we have. And, these are folks that are, mid to late career folks who aren't extremely computer literate, right? And so, but boy, they latched right on to this recognition program. And now they're so excited. If they even get $5 in recognition rewards, they're just thrilled. And so I think it's finding those, again, differentiators in your culture that will allow you to get the engagement and the retention of those employees. We're doing things like the Leadership Academy, the Learning Central, the Good Deeds Days. It fits our culture. It won't fit everybody's culture, but certainly just look for those little gold nuggets that are in your company that can help you. Just even if you implement one, it will make a difference.
Yeah, and I believe you mentioned earlier that listening to what your staff have to say, they'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. They
They'll
will.
let you know.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And what programs or initiatives or tactics do your staff most appreciate?
I think they really like the Learning Central platform that was implemented by our learning and development team. I think they really love you know, 95% engagement on our recognition program. They love that. That's a big deal to them. I think they just love it when Nikki comes out with really cool things like we're gonna have a holiday party now. We're gonna have training in Omaha. She's flying everybody across the company to Omaha from wherever they live. And then with the holiday party, she loves costume parties. So, it's a Wonderland in Meridian theme this year. You can dress like Alice in Wonderland, or if you choose not to, you don't have to. But we have a great culture that just people want to be together. And this is a great opportunity to bring people to Omaha and also to have them spend time with each other. Whereas a lot of times it's by teams. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things coming up at the end of this year for Meridian employees.
What are you going to dress up as?
You know, um, I don't know. I'm not able to go to the party, but I am able to go to the training this year. And that's a huge, huge win for me. Anytime we get training from guest speakers and from our internal staff, it's a good day.
Yeah, and we were talking about training and sessions in a past discussion, and even for everybody listening here today, if there's one thing you can take away from this whole session, I would say that it's worth all of your time. So, latch on to anything here that's resonates with you, and take that one big takeaway. And I'd like to talk about core values. Oftentimes when I speak to HR leaders and I ask them about their core values, it's always the hardest question, because sometimes these individuals that I'm asking about their core values, they're the ones that have written them and they still don't recite them verbatim. So yeah, can you expand maybe a little bit on core values and the impact it has?
I feel like I have a tattoo on my arm of our core values. It's just, we build our culture around those core values. And so it's all in, teamwork, share it, and own it. And those can be translated into a variety of ways. For example, I look at share it as sharing my knowledge and my experiences. But a lot of people, will share their heart. They'll share something that they had happen at home. It can be translated in a variety of ways. But the way that we take our core values, Nikki does a great job of the branding. So there are, the little bracelets, the little whatever plastic bracelets that you have. They have those, they have lanyards, they have t-shirts. She gave us all t-shirts for St. Patrick's Day, and they had our core values on the back. They're on our stationery, they're all around. And what's great about our recognition program is that they're built into our recognition program. So when you recognize someone, you recognize them based on one of our core values, or you can put all of them in there and recognize them. So it's really front and center with Meridian. Core values are.
Yeah, that's great feedback too. And it's so nice to know or hear that your core values are tied into recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And what tips would you give for listening to your employees? What kind of feedback mechanism do you like using?
We're doing the 30-60 day right now for new hires. So we want to catch them, within the first 2 months. If something is starting to go a little bit awry, we want to be able to fix that. So we actually have a team, my team and the learning and development team meet every other week on their feedback and assign out to each of us, who's going to take this employee. Let's just circle back with them and thank them for their feedback. Or if there's some kind of an assistance they need, let's provide them that assistance. And then the 45 and 90-day review from the manager to that employee happens too in that same time, 45 to 90 days. They'll know if they're succeeding or if there's something that needs to have a little help. Maybe it's a Learning Central item that they can get. But those things are in place. And as I mentioned, we're going to kick off a employee engagement survey in early 2023. We're also doing health checks. We do action plans with sites. So if we understand that there are things happening that may need a little bit of help from us, we're happy to reach out with leadership to do that.
And just kind of expanding on the idea of the employees and a little bit of social media. We often suggest or think of employees as being ambassadors for your organization. Are there any good examples of employees going out there and being those ambassadors? I know you've mentioned and touched on the good deeds that individuals will do, but yeah, how do
Mhm.
you leverage your own staff to become ambassadors for the organization?
You know, in HR, when I interview for HR team members, I interview for that passion and what does that look like? How can they be a good ambassador for Meridian? So, speaking just inwardly about my team, that's part of the deal, right? You're going to be an ambassador for the company. When we talk about being an ambassador, they're out there on on social media. They're talking about Meridian. When we hire someone, we give them a little social media snippet that they can put out there on their LinkedIn profile that says, "Hey, I just accepted a job with Meridian," and talk about that. We also are looking at starting up an employer brand initiative coming up here pretty quickly. I'm going to kick that off with our marketing team. And we're wanting to, you know, again, differentiate Meridian from everyone else. What's our brand? And why Meridian is the question. Like, why would I want to work for your company? And what is so great about them? And so my vision is, that we would have some type of a run through walls, I call it run through walls video. And it would be something that, maybe kicks off with our founder or someone on the executive team talking about Meridian and what their journey has been. But then also have employees talk about what's great. Maybe it's a one word answer. If I throw out why Meridian, they answer it in one word. But it becomes this video that we can then use as a branding mechanism on our website, where we can also use it when we post jobs, and show them what it's really like to work here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Thank
Mhm.
you. I was speaking to a company, actually, it was just last week. They incentivized online participation and they actually created an award around best social media posts that promote the organization and the culture.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there, looking for ways to come up with some fun awards, that's definitely a creative award that you can introduce into your own organization.
Yeah.
And what role do you think recognition programs will play in addressing the employee engagement and retention challenges that you mentioned before?
I can speak on behalf of Meridian. When we implemented our recognition program in April of this year, we were hoping for a lot of engagement into it. But when Bucketlist called me I guess a month ago and asked me to speak on this webinar, we were told that we were at around 91. I think it's more like 95% engagement into our recognition program now. And so that's a statistic, again, I'm a data hound, so I love statistics. But that's a statistic that's hard to beat. I mean, I can't point to one specific program that's driving our engagement and retention, but I look at them as a whole and I say, okay, since this was implemented, has the needle moved? Have we gone up in one area or another? And that's why we listen to the employees. By and large, they'll come to us and say, that was a home run. You implemented a recognition program that was amazing. Or they'll say, that really isn't for me, but here's something that I would really like to see at your company or our company. And that's how we do things.
Awesome. Do you have any awards or have you incorporated any awards that incentivize certain behaviors?
Mhm. So our recognition program at Bucketlist is built around our 4 core values, but then bigger than that, um, it's a recognition that they can just put a little line item in there and say what they're appreciative of. But then we have our brand at the bottom of this slide. You'll see that there's a fleur de lis, that little, it looks like the New Orleans Saints logo down there, but that's the fleur de lis. So we use that in our recognition program as well as a brand. And so instead of getting award dollars or award points, they get fleur de lis. And so now that lingo has, infiltrated our culture as well. Oh, how many fleur de lis did you get this month or whatever? But our recognition program too is is a way to brag about, things that are going on. And it's amazing, how these things just start taking off. At first we had, our small group of people that signed on to Bucketlist, and then they started talking about it. People started seeing it, and then it just took off.
It can be contagious.
It is.
And it's an ever-growing snowball, and it's nice when it's moving fast.
Yeah. And our issue with our previous retention or our recognition program was, it was great. Our CEO would, provide lunches, or she would send Meridian swag out to different sites, but it wasn't something that was consistent overall. And it wasn't something that people had control over. So our recognition program now allows us to do that.
Awesome. And let's maybe start talking about that.
Sure,
what
sure.
led you to adopting a recognition and rewards program?
Yeah, it was that same, we're going from a small company to a larger company. We just don't have the bandwidth for one person to be sending out lunches or sending out swag or doing this. So, it was kind of twofold. It was, how can we get a consistent program throughout our company that is scalable for our growth, and very retention oriented. And then also, how can we take this load off of one person who was doing all of this work previously? And anytime anyone would have a baby, there would be a gift that would need to go out, or a wedding gift, whatever. But now this program allows us to, give out these fleur-de-lis, which are dollars, and translate into experiences, gift cards, donations. They can take a holiday or a vacation day. They can use it for a holiday party to bring their spouse. It's a really robust program.
And I often speak, or I've seen a lot of companies where they have swag, and they have pens, and they have all these things that they hand out, which is great,
Mhm.
right? But how do you suggest, or how do you go about personalizing those rewards or those experiences or gifts? How do you know what your employees are looking for?
So, Bucketlist puts out just a sample of things that they have already curated as far as experiences. We're in all these different states, so there are experiences like a riverboat cruise in Savannah, Georgia, where in Omaha, it could be a beer tour, it could be a zip line tour, it could be, name it, they have it. But then once we implemented it, then we asked our employees, what are we missing here? Like, what would you like to see? And they gave us ideas. Hey, we'd like an airline card. We would like a hotel stay. So we've been building that out. There are gift cards now. I'll tell you what, Amazon gift card is by far the most used redemption of our whole platform right now. So, the gift cards are a good thing for us. Amazon, Visa, MasterCard. We have Lululemon. I mean, we have all these really cool Starbucks. We have all different kinds of things. And yet it goes back to the giving culture of our company. So if someone wants to donate to the cancer center or cancer fund, or they want to give to muscular dystrophy, or they want to do, for the Humane Society, whatever, we have all of those options as well. What's great about it too, if you get enough points or fleur-de-lis, you can combine things. You could, buy an airline ticket, and you could also do an experience. And I'll just talk a little bit about the generosity of our founder. So the way we built our program is that we have, whenever you have a birthday, she gives you 40 fleur-de-lis. That's $40 for every birthday. We have 665 or 55 employees right now, so that's a lot of money. Then for your anniversary, you get, $100 for every year. Then up at 5, you get $1,000. At 10, you get $2,000. At 15, you get $3,000 of recognition to spend however you would like to. You control how you spend that recognition money. And so it's really cool to see. We've recently had people that have said, I've got a coworker who's fallen on hard times, and I'd like to give them my entire Bucketlist, allowance for the month. How how do I do it? And so we've worked through that as well. Every manager of people gets $250 a month to spend however they'd like to. And every non-people manager gets $10 a month to spend. But it's just really, it's a very robust, dynamic program for us.
Yeah, I like the idea of the individuals giving back as well. I mean, I think that's a testimonial to the culture at Meridian.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
for everyone here, Gene, how would you suggest going up the ladder to get a program like this implemented? Oftentimes I feel or hear that that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah. So I've had to do that, throughout my career, but here it's really a nice process, because once you show the value that it will bring, you have to have your facts when you go in, right? It's a business case that you have to develop to get something like this implemented. But once you prove that it's good for the employees, it's good for the company, it's financially sound, and it's legal, if that business case gets up to the executive team, by and large, they're going to be smart about it, and they're going to, review it and come back with a good result. There's times when some things don't get approved, and that's for a reason. But this one was a real good business case and very sound, and they approved it.
And we're happy for that.
Yes.
So before Bucketlist, though, how did
Yeah.
you recognize employees, and were you able to measure the improvement in engagement from going from A to B?
I think going back to, there were pockets of people that were recognized. There were sites that were recognized. There were clinics that were recognized, but it wasn't across the board, right? So I don't know that we have a measurement in place. I mean, we didn't have a benchmark when we started, because it was a kind of I don't want to say inconsistent, but it wasn't a formalized structure before. But now it is. And then when we realized that we were, 91 to 95% engagement, and I hear it every day from our employees. I think that it's something that, if you're going to continue to scale this culture and you hire people, you've got to be able to tell them that we have a program that hits all levels, all people across the organization.
Yeah, I love it. And what led you to decide that Meridian needed a rewards and recognition platform?
Just that it was, scalable. We needed something that was going to grow with us. And we also needed to have the ability to build teamwork over that recognition platform. So I go out every morning and I look at the recognition that's happened throughout the day before. And this program also gives you the opportunity to recognize a team, for example. If you have $250 to spend, you could give 5 people $10 each, and you've got, $50. You still have $200 left to give out. We also, Erin, I almost forgot to mention this, but we also have quarterly awards and we have an annual award. So we've implemented that. It's a nomination process then, and it goes to our executive team once a quarter, and they review nominations from our staff. There's criteria around a quarterly MVP award, Most Valuable Player award, and also a quarterly innovation award. And they have to follow the criteria that they need to submit. And then once that comes into us, we send it up to the executive team next week now for this quarter, and they'll vote on it. And then those people get a large amount of fleur-de-lis to spend, and they also get recognized on our Meridian intranet.
I love hearing people recognized.
Yeah.
We'll move along here. How has your experience with the formalized recognition and rewards program been, and what return have you gotten from implementing a program like this?
Ours isn't by number. I got to be honest with that. We didn't do a benchmark to begin, but we absolutely are amazed at the engagement that it has gotten. And it's not just a number percentage of engagement, but it's people coming to me, a few times a week saying, thank you so much for implementing this. It's been a life changer for me. I can have my kid's birthday party now because of Bucketlist. So it's things like that. I think formalized fit our mode and our needs for the future. This is a good time to do it. And I think that, we've looked at other recognition programs when we looked at Bucketlist, but Bucketlist certainly met our needs, and it was integratable with Teams, which we use as a platform.
Awesome. Yeah. Love the chat features within Teams. It's always fun to have that connection there. And
Yeah.
any tips on what makes a successful launch in your mind? So, tips on launching the program like this?
Yeah. So with Bucketlist, they really hit the mark on having an integration team that met with us. I think it was weekly or bi-weekly. But we had folks from our side, folks from Bucketlist. They had an integration plan that was very, very formalized, and you knew what you had to take away, and they knew what they had to take away, and you knew a date that it had to be done. And what was interesting when we launched, Bucketlist has all kinds of training materials, and they recommended that we have ambassadors in our company. And so I was racking my brain with my team to come up with ambassadors, that could go out and talk about Bucketlist. And as we got closer to it, and then we did the training, just the normal training for our entire company, it became very clear that they did not need any ambassador to tell them to use Bucketlist. They were going to go right in and do it. And so it was very apparent to me and to the team that this was the right thing to do at the time for us. We needed this program, and they were ready to latch onto it. So yeah, and another story for you, when we have new hires every week, then we talk about Bucketlist in the new hire onboarding. And one of the funny things about that is they're ready to launch into Bucketlist before we even get them into our payroll system. And so they're not even eligible to go into that yet until they get into the payroll system a couple of days later. But there's just a group of people that are like, I want access to Bucketlist. I want to be into Bucketlist and all this. So there's just this, it's kind of like Christmas morning. You're waiting for Santa to come. It's waiting for Bucketlist to get opened up.
It only took you this long to mention Christmas. Wow.
Yeah.
I like it. And yeah, you've touched on a lot of good points here. Why did you choose Bucketlist?
It was probably the interaction or integration with Teams, and then also the experiences. That really was a draw for us. And we can actually add experiences if we want to. As I mentioned, our holiday party, to bring a spouse, it costs you X amount of dollars. Well, we opened it up to our staff and said, hey, if you want to bring your spouse, why don't you use some of your Bucketlist rewards and bring them? So now we've got a bunch of people that have done that. We've also got people that want to have a private hotel room. Okay, that'll cost you X amount of money. That's X amount of, Bucketlist fleur-de-lis. So we're using it in a way that really meets our needs, not to say that this will happen across the board for everyone.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. I'm going to get into some of your key takeaways.
Mhm.
And, what we've all heard here is that becoming a culture leader, listen to the voice of your employees, lead by example, and do what you say you're going to do. Don't underestimate the amount of time and effort it takes to implement new strategies and programs. Communication and transparency is key. Give people the why behind culture initiatives. It always comes back to how you treat people and respect them. Jean, is there anything in your key takeaways here that you'd want to highlight, or any final stories that you'd want to share before we continue on?
I'm a very transparent person myself. My team knows that. And I think a lot of times we implement initiatives and we don't give the why behind it. So I do live by that one. And a lot of times I may think this is a great idea, and I put it in front of my team and they're like, well, that stinks. Why did you think that? Why would we implement that initiative right now? And so it's that whole give and take, that, voice of the employee, no matter where you are. If it's an executive team member, if it's a mid-manager, if it's the lowest level of the organization, I will listen to what they have to say. And, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give really good feedback.
I love it. And I've heard you say listening multiple times there. So, and of course, that's one of your key takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I appreciate your stories, Jean. We all do. They're lovely. I can see here in the comments, people are relating to some of your comments. Some are asking questions. We'll try to get through these next couple slides here so we have time to go over some of the questions I see coming in. At this time, though, I'd like to, ask everybody, we're looking to improve on our webinars. So we'd like to get a little bit of feedback. So I'm going to launch a poll in a moment here. So you'll see at the bottom, just give me a moment while I bring this up. Perfect. So if you could all participate, that would be great. How likely are you to recommend this webinar to a colleague? We'll give this a few moments to run. See lots of participation, really appreciated. Give it a few more seconds. Awesome. We have a good group here.
Yeah.
Lots of participation. As when we talk about engagement, we have an engaged audience. All right, I'm going to wrap this up here. So I appreciate everybody sharing that. And for those of you interested in learning more and would like some help about building amazing cultures with rewards and a recognition program, this webinar is brought to you by Bucketlist Rewards, the #1 ranked recognition and rewards platform in customer satisfaction and ease of use. We are very passionate, and we can help you find solutions to lowering turnover, recognizing the amazing work, bringing your staff together by breaking down those company silos. I've seen some of that in the chat here. We've also built some awesome programs with all sizes of organizations, including some of the cool brands you see here. So if you're interested, I'm going to pop up another poll in a moment. If you'd like to learn more about Bucketlist and what we can offer and maybe share some more best practices with a one-on-one chat, then we'd love to hear your participation on that. So here comes another poll for you guys. Let's give this a few minutes to trickle in here. Again, appreciate the engagement and the participation from everybody here. Let's scroll up. I'm trying to see if we have any Leaf fans in the house while we get this poll going. Being from Canada, I got to plug the hockey. And Christmas fans. I'm sure we got a lot of Christmas fans here too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to end the poll now. So again, I appreciate everyone participating and engaging with the poll. Leafs, I see. Oh, go Stars. Okay, we got some Stars fans here. Nice.
Santa's in the house. There you go. I love it.
Santa's in the house. I love it as well. Awesome. So before we close it out, I'd love to give Jean the opportunity to share a little bit more fun facts about Meridian.
Yeah. So I'm always happy to brag about Meridian. It's a good place for me to work. It's a great place for other folks to work, but I'm going to brag again about being on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies, 3rd year in a row at 745 and climbing. We have 35 plus sites nationwide and 90 plus doctors. We have 85,000 participants enrolled for studies. And then there were 10,000 plus participants in COVID-19 vaccine studies at our last count. And this is the big one for me. So 2.4 million has been donated since 1999 to greater causes. And that could not be more of a sense of pride for me than anything. So I'll end with that. I always like to end on a good note.
You've shared a lot of good notes. So I think we could have ended this 40 minutes ago and it would have been a good note. So really appreciate that. I love hearing how companies get involved and donate back.
Yeah.
And as a result of participating today, you're all going to earn the following credit from HRCI. For those calling in, this event is being recorded, which will allow you to pick up the credits at your own convenience. And as far as everything we have today, I mean, that's pretty much it. I thank you all for joining today. It's been a lot of fun. I've saved some time at the end here so that we can pop up the questions here. So let me see what we have here. Sorry guys, I'm just opening up. We got a lot of questions here. I love it. Let's see. Let's go with this one here from Rebecca. Should a company include conflict resolution when creating a new organizational culture?
Should they include conflict resolution? I'm kind of that one. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one. I'm not sure whether I get what the conflict resolution would mean, but if she can put a little bit more notes to that, I'll be happy to answer it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And let's see, what else do we have here? Do you have any strategies around gratitude?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So here's one I forgot to mention. So I've come from another company that we did something called Grata Tuesday, right? And it was a smaller company and we could do things probably a little easier, but we just had a board in one of the conference rooms. We had 150 to 200 employees, so it wasn't real small. And we just had sticky notes and a magic marker by that board. And we said, put up here what you're most grateful for, right? And then put your name on it. So they filled the board. We had to get another board for them to fill. And then right before Thanksgiving, we all gathered everyone out. We had breakfast. We read the board, right? And our CEO at the time just would pull off a sticky note and say, okay, Johnny, you wrote this note, talk about it. Tell me exactly what this means. And then he gave everybody a gift card to Starbucks. But it was just really engaging. And I'm going to do that at Meridian in some form or fashion. I've got to figure out how we can do a Grata Tuesday. We're going to have Good Deeds Day on November 11th. So I don't want to interfere with that, but I do think we do need to keep an eye on what we're most grateful for.
Awesome. Love it. And I see someone asking here, does Bucketlist Rewards have a LinkedIn presence? Yes, we certainly do. So please find us on LinkedIn. You can connect with both Jean and I also on LinkedIn. Let's see. I see a bunch of people here asking about the credits. I've posted it in the chat. So if anyone's looking for those credits, they're in the chat there as well. And I see some people appreciative of that, the last example you've just shared. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, this is a great testimonial to the activity of this group here.
Yeah.
A couple minutes left. So
I've got one here that's
you got a good one. All right.
Can I share our core values motto? Our core values are all in, share it, teamwork, and own it. So that's what Meridian has for core values.
And I see another question here as well. Has the move towards remote work impacted Meridian?
I would say somewhat. It's funny, and I would love to hear what this group thinks, but I think there's a sense that when you're a remote worker, you don't work as hard, and it's kind of a funny assumption. I'm available basically 24/7, it seems. I mean, my laptop is here and I can dial in at any point in time. Now, am I asked to do that? No. But I think there's a sense that that's going on. Now, we are opening up more remote roles because they're easier to fill. People want to work remotely because of childcare, because of the high gas prices there for a while. But it's one of those things where the remote worker, for me, again, I like to be with people. And so it does get a little lonely here at times when you're working alone, but you just have to find ways to build a team that wants to interact with you and you want to interact with them. I have no trouble filling my calendar every day with calls and meetings. And I would probably encourage people to do that, if they're struggling with being remote. But yeah, I think it has changed the way we do work. I think it has.
Awesome. Well, Jean, really appreciate the time and energy you've put into all this. I really appreciate the audience participation here. This here is for all of us. We're at time now. So again, the session has been recorded. We'll be posting it at some point. Just want to thank everybody again, and we'll hopefully all see you again in the next time.